welcome all. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are or you may be. So we are starting another session of Warriors Chat of Stroke Support India. Just a small introduction is to Stroke Support. We are based in New Delhi as well as other cities in India, and we are a patient support group. Essentially, the mission is raising stroke awareness and helping the affected. We have groups on WhatsApp and Telegram. Letisha is on our Telegram group already. And the purpose is we essentially to motivate one another who are on similar journeys, be it the caregiver or be it the affected, because as we know, stroke is not a very easy condition to live with, and in many cases very, very confusing as well. So we have been active since about 2014. Just to give some background, I started this website in 2013, consequent to my mother suffering a stroke. She was in 2006, way back, when she was bedridden for about 6 years till her death in India, during which time I realized that essentially there is no awareness and there are no support groups in India. Of course, social media was just not there. It was just coming in at the time. So we did face a lot of issues, right from awareness, right from solutions to different situations, which were quite confusing to us as a whole family. So it's somewhere in 2013 end, I started the website, Stroke Support. However, I was full-time involved in a job. I'm a lawyer and a engineer by profession, which took me to 2019. And then I started focusing completely on that, on stroke support. And with the support of many, many people, we have grown from that point onwards. We are a fairly active group, I think, both on social media as well as on our own website, as well as on our WhatsApp and Telegram groups. So what we do is we have warrior chats, where we have been having people from India also in the past. We have had people from US, we have people from Canada coming on these chats, most of which are also on our YouTube channel. And that is how I got in touch with Letisha, and she kindly agreed, starting with herself, to host a series of such chats with the stroke warriors that we will also maybe learn and be encouraged from. So that is a short background to stroke support. And Letisha, of course, has been with the chat earlier. She suffered a stroke in about 10 years ago at age 35. But it has been wonderful to chat up a short while ago, some weeks ago, and to find how she's finding her mission in spite of the adversities that she has been through, and to encourage others now. It's a wonderful, indeed, it's a wonderful effort. Similarly, Jodi, whatever little I know, Jodi, she suffered a stroke also likewise, and a brain stem stroke, which I believe, I don't know much, but I think is quite serious at age 38. And you have also been assisting, working along with Letisha on the book that she has written. So wonderful, both of you. Thanks, both of you, to be here. Wonderful to have you here. And I will leave it to you to take it further from there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hadi. Thanks, Hadi. Thank you for that amazing introduction. And thank you for having us on for the Stroke Warrior Chat series. We're very honoured to be here to share our stories and to inspire and encourage other people who have not just had a stroke, but are also the loved ones, carers and support networks, neurotherapists, etc., of people who have had stroke. So joining me today is my beautiful friend Jodi O'Connell, who is also, hey Jodi, who's also a co-author on a book that we compiled called finding yourself after stroke. And so today we're just going to have a bit of a chat about Jodi's story, how she had her stroke, what happened during her diagnosis, her recovery, her rehab, her life perceptions and changes post-stroke, and some valuable insights that she can share for the stroke community. So welcome, Jodi, and thank you for coming on and being with us today.
Thank you, Letisha. I'm honoured to be here and to share a little bit about my experience.
Yeah, and it has been an experience. And Jodi and I are kind of, we're both 10 years post-stroke. So we both had our strokes in June of 2012. So we've both had quite a lot of post-stroke journey and insights that we love to share and give back to the stroke community. So Jodi, tell us a little bit about what your life was like prior to your stroke. What were you doing? What was your lifestyle, hobbies, friends, family? What did that look like for you?
Oh, goodness me, it feels like a lifetime ago. I would say I was 38. I was practice manager of an accounting firm. I was a single mother of oh gosh, I can't remember how old they were now. 11 and 15, I think, if I remember rightly. 2 boys. And I was pretty much head down, bum up, working, striving, wanting to provide for my family and to move up as far as ambition and that sort of stuff goes. I was literally just in absolute overdrive. Hobbies, I loved to sing. I also used to love going out dancing and spending time with family and friends.
So it sounds like you had quite a full life prior to your stroke.
I certainly did.
And 2 boys, mid-teens and pre-teens. So that would have been quite a challenge for your entire family when your stroke occurred. So
Absolutely.
When your stroke did occur, give us a bit of I know your story, but for everybody that's listening, give them a bit of a lead up to how did you come to the hospital? So what was the lead up prior to that?
Sure. Okay. So I always start my stroke story with 3 days prior. I was a smoker at the time, and I'd actually been to my doctor, and he sort of said, how are you going at giving up smoking? And I said, I'm going really terrible at it. I really need some incentive. So, and jokingly said, maybe I need a scare, like tell me I've got emphysema or something bad to make me give up. And so then I left there, and then I'd had a bit of neck trouble and went to an osteopath, and he did a bit of where they crack your neck. So he did that. And then 3 days later, I was out. We had end of financial year party, being an accounting firm, and got home from there and went to bed, had a few drinks, and woke up feeling a bit dizzy, and tried to walk down the hallway and kept crashing into the wall, and thought, wow, I must have drank more than I thought I had. I didn't actually think that. I was pretty concerned at the time, and actually thought that my drink may have been spiked, because I couldn't think of what else it could possibly be. I had really bad double vision, and I could still talk okay, but I felt like my face had drooped, even though when I looked in the mirror, it didn't really look like it had. So yeah, I pretty much convinced myself that someone had spiked my drink, and that I was lucky to be safe at home in bed.
So that would have been a bit scary.
It was a bit scary. But yeah, at the time, stroke didn't even register. I was literally like, that was my first thing, was someone has spiked my drink. That's all it could be, particularly because I had been out that night. So I just tried to go back to sleep, and then I was like laying there contemplating, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, let's reassess what's happening here. And effectively there was numbness in the left side of my body, down my entire body. And the fact that I couldn't see properly, I think the numbness in the left side was kind of like, that could be stroke. So that's when I rang my sister, and I'm like,
the entire side?
yes.
Like the entire side, yeah.
Yeah. So I rang my sister then, and I'm like, can you come and take me to the hospital, because I'm really not sure what's going on. She ended up ringing the ambulance and met them here, and they just kept asking me what drugs I'd taken, like, because obviously stroke didn't feature on their radar either, given that I was so young. So I felt a bit ostracized in that moment, because I was scared of what was happening, and to be accused of lying and not telling them what drugs I'd taken that day, because they were really quite insistent. Didn't feel very good. It
doesn't really validate the concerns that you were having at the time as what was happening with your body, or what could be happening with your body.
Yeah.
And so how long was it from when you got home from your work party to when these symptoms started, do you think?
I would have said it was just a matter of hours. And I remember, because it is 10 years ago now too, I'm consciously sort of saying that as an aside, because obviously our memories change. Well, not change, but differ. But I do recall quite a warm sensation creeping up from my neck around the time it happened. And I don't know whether I'd like turned quickly when I'd rolled over in bed or what, but it was like there was a warm sensation sort of in my neck. And then I'm like, I need to go to the toilet. And that's when I got up and sort of started to realize that there were balancing issues. So, yes, was admitted into emergency, where they conducted a whole heap of tests. At the time, I was asked whether I had a headache, and at the time I did. And so one doctor just diagnosed migraine, because apparently there is a migraine that can give stroke-like symptoms. And so they dosed me up with migraine medication, which made me violently ill, and tried to send me home. Luckily, there was a nurse there that sort of, I don't know whether she sort of saw more than what the doctor was seeing at the time, but she insisted that I don't be sent home and that further tests were done. So I was then put into ICU because I still had no real idea. They were still treating migraine, but 24 hours later, the migraine wasn't supposed to last that long, and I was still like, I hadn't recovered, and that's when they were looking at other things. So, but it wasn't until I think I went into hospital early Saturday morning, and I had an MRI the following Monday, and Monday afternoon they diagnosed stroke. So it was like 2.5 days of not knowing what was going on.
That's quite quite an unsettling amount of time, isn't it, for you, especially going, well, what's happening to me?
I would have expected more from doctors that know what they're doing, and I don't know. I think they did a CT scan and nothing came up on the CT scan. It really wasn't until the MRI that they truly diagnosed. And when they came in to talk to me about it, they basically asked whether I'd had any traumatic, like had a car accident or anything over the last few days. And they actually mentioned whether I'd had a neck adjustment done or anything like that. And that's when I'm like, yeah, I did 3 days before. And that's what they put it down to. It was like a trauma that with like slow release rupture.
Yeah, I have seen that a bit with the neck manipulations, the vertebral artery dissections, or even through massage when a clot shifts and goes up any one of those arteries up into our brains. But thankfully you got to the hospital, and I'm like you, it took 4 days until my stroke was diagnosed. I had a completely shocking headache, and my initial diagnosis was cryptogenic stroke because they didn't know what it was caused by, and then it was migraine related stroke before my underlying factor was discovered, 4 or 5 days later.
It is scary.
Yeah. And so for you, you've got to the hospital, you've been there a few days, you're in ICU. What did they find when they did the MRI?
The terminology for my stroke, I always have to read it out, and I haven't actually got it on me now. But basically, from my understanding, I suffered a bleed, an artery bleed into the brain around about here, because they did show me. And so, that's pretty much what they discovered, and said that I was lucky to still be here.
And I totally agree with them. I mean, I know your diagnosis, and it was a brainstem stroke. And when you see the outcomes of people that have had brainstem strokes and your own circumstances, that must have been quite a polarizing and conflicting view, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it, once I was diagnosed as stroke, which was scary in itself, but a relief finally that we kind of knew what was going on, because I'm a warrior anyway, and a survivor and a fighter, but I need to know what I'm fighting for and what the circumstances are, so I know what to do. So I did, with the help of one of my friends, because I couldn't read at the time, we sort of went through what the doctor had written down and sort of Googled and did a bit of research and that sort of thing. And through that, I discovered that the stroke, the type of stroke I had, was very serious, and people had died and ended up in a vegetative state with it. So I kind of felt pretty damn lucky, even though, like, at that time I still couldn't walk or anything like that. But yeah, I was just lucky I was just wrapped to still be here breathing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were in hospital, you're just saying now you couldn't walk. How long did it take you for your rehab recovery to go from there to being able to walk and discharged, returning back to home?
So once I was diagnosed as stroke, they quickly admitted me into rehab and got me up and about ASAP. And so they, based on my symptoms and the actual stroke itself, they estimated that I would be in hospital around 3 months. But I ended up being discharged, I think, 3 weeks. So yeah, around 27 days or something after. Because as soon as I knew it was stroke, as soon as they started the rehab plan, I just jumped in hook, line and sinker. I'm like, right, whatever I'm left with, I'm going to have to work with and develop as much as possible. Plus I had my 2 boys that I needed to go home to, and I had a mortgage, and I had all those sorts of things that, yeah, I wanted to get fit and get out as soon as possible.
So that was very challenging for you with your being a single mum, being a warrior, being, fiercely independent anyway, to having lost that independence. How did you deal with that like emotionally?
I think I grieved deeply in the early days because of the independence and that sort of thing. But I think my fierceness in my independence actually contributed to just how well I did in rehab, etc. Like, it was a real fire burning in my belly and I kind of feel blessed with what I've been left with that has allowed me to regain the majority of my independence back. But yeah, at the time it was really tough. I found it really embarrassing having to be taken to the toilet, having to be showered. Like the first day I had a shower on my own post-stroke was so freeing. Like, it was a massive relief.
Kind of like you lose that dignity in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
To shower you and toilet you, and
yeah, because I was worried too about what would happen when I went home. Did I have to expect my boys to help me do these things and that sort of thing? And that's not their role to do. So I was very grateful that I did end up having to be able to do those sorts of things independently. Worked my butt off walking again, and it took. I was exhausted. Literally, hospital for me was rehab, like get up, get dressed, rehab, breakfast, rehab, lunch, rehab, rest. Yeah, it was just absolutely full on. I had the timetable of what was happening when, and it was absolutely chock-a-block full of everything.
And so when you were discharged home, were you given a program to do like these therapies in the community?
Yes.
Or were you back to your independence again when you returned to home?
No, I still had rehab sessions at the local rehab centre, and I still had OTs visiting me at home and a social worker visiting me at home too, because I had a tendency for depression pre-stroke. So yeah, they wanted to keep a really good eye on me. And so the hardest bit, I think, was getting to my rehab sessions in the community, because I wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to drive,
like 10 years and I still can't drive.
Oh, wow. Well, I feel really blessed that I'm allowed to drive now. But yeah, at the time, wasn't allowed to drive, was expected to go to rehab sessions once or twice a week, and what didn't qualify for taxi vouchers. So that was a little bit tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of these little loopholes here, isn't there, where you fall between the cracks, and it can be quite frustrating.
Yeah,
but we are quite fortunate in the country that we live in, that we do have access to these services that do fall under our under Medicare. So for you, you had physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and what other therapies were you accessing at the time?
I was also seeing an exercise physiologist, and I saw a dietitian, because my weight just exploded, and hasn't quite gone back to normal. And don't know if it will. But yeah, dietitian, and yeah, I had the social worker. Yeah, I think that was about it. But I was really lucky too, because our local YMCA was holding a sponsorship program at the time. So once I finished the rehab sessions, they sponsored me a gym membership.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So then I used to go and regularly do swimming and that sort of stuff as well. But yeah,
swimming is in hydrotherapy.
It was actually just me in the water swimming, and with water aerobics. It wasn't actually with a person per se.
So your own initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to just try and build up some strength in the left side, like doing weights and that sort of thing. So that was an experience, going to the gym where, normally you're sort of like that, and it's like, yeah, this side's great and this side's kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
So that was a really good initiative, and that kept me motivated, and the people there that were really encouraging and that sort of thing too. I was really, really lucky when I came home. I had the support of my family. I also had the support of my ex-husband's family.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we were really close. Yeah. So my ex-mother-in-law was dropping around meals and that sort of thing. The kids' friends, parents were picking them up and taking them to school and doing all that sort of stuff. So I was so lucky that I had all the support that I did.
It definitely makes a difference.
It really does.
I mean, I was a person with zero support, so I hear everybody's stories, and I think, it would have made such a difference to my life to have, even just one of those things. So, and I think that's, in my post-stroke journey, mine hasn't really been a physical recovery. It's more been that mental and emotional, and it's because I didn't have a support system in place. And, you see people whose post-stroke challenges are incredibly physical, where they need to relearn how to walk, talk, swallow, everything again, but they have so much support, and it's that support that makes their quality of life different, and their mental emotional recovery different. And it just looks different for everybody.
Definitely. I reckon though, knowing the struggle I had with, and I would say that I went through bouts of depression during my recovery, but just didn't I didn't go back on medication or anything like that. I was just but real dark moments.
Do you think that was due to the acceptance of your stroke, or the grieving the loss of who you were, so to speak, prior to your stroke?
There were
or that there was trauma or things prior to your stroke that had a cumulative effect post-stroke?
I think it was definitely loss of the physical abilities and the fatigue. Oh my God, the fatigue. No one warns you of the fatigue. I'm 10 years later and I still experience fatigue.
Me too.
And but there were elements too though post-stroke, and I guess because I'm talking about sort of early coming home and that sort of thing, the struggles and that sort of there was elements of loss of physicality, physical abilities, tiredness, incredible amounts of emotional eating, that sort of stuff. But I also, as I fought the fight and didn't want to succumb into victim mentality and that sort of thing, even though I did experience bouts of depression, I just didn't want to stay there. And I knew that
exactly. At some point you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? You know that no one's coming. I've got to change this.
No one's going to come and save me. And that's when I started looking at sort of changing my mindset a little bit from the whole why me, why did this happen to me, to holy crap, I'm still here, look at what could have happened. And then it's like, well, why am I still here?
So how long do you think it took you on that journey of
I reckon,
coming out to that acceptance and slowly shifting your mindset?
I reckon that it was around the time that I eventually returned to full-time work. So it's probably 18 months, 2 years later.
Do you think that going back to work and giving you something to do, a purpose, so that you're not sitting inside your own thoughts constantly, helped with that?
Definitely. So I went back to work. My workplace was so understanding. Again, very, very lucky. I went back to work maybe 3 months post-stroke for like half a day a week. And then it was like 2 half days a week. And they just let me ease back in based on my own abilities and threshold. And I remember going, and the first full day I did, they let me go and have a nap in my lunch break in one of the interview rooms that had a couch.
How long had you been working for them prior to this stroke?
Probably around 7 years.
Okay. Yeah. So you already had a very good relationship with them.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I just remember locking the interview room door and setting my alarm and going for a nap. So I was right to then do a few more hours in the afternoon. But yeah, it took 18 months to actually return to full-time work. And that's not to say that, as I said, I still experience fatigue today. It was just manageable.
And what things do you do to help you cope and manage with your neurofatigue? Do you have any sort of triggers that will bring it on, or things that will help you manage it?
Yeah. So one of the first things I did, because my breathing was affected by my stroke, is I went and had a sleep apnea test done and was diagnosed with sleep apnea. So now I have a CPAP machine, and that has made a huge difference to my energy level. Do you still have that today? I do, yes.
Yep.
So I've had that for 5 or 6 years. No, 7 years. Yeah. Not necessarily waking up fresher, but lasting longer through the day.
So you don't actually feel like when you wake up you've had a deep sleep, but your energy levels can remain consistent without you having a dive during the day? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. So used to be come 3 o'clock, that was the end of me. I could not do anything more mentally. And it's funny, well, it's not funny, but trying to describe my fatigue to people that don't understand the neurofatigue, and they're kind of like, oh, you're just going to have a sleep. It's like it just shuts down everything.
Yeah.
No amount of going and like closing your eyes and sleeping. It's just a shutdown. It's like
I describe it as
shutters it down.
You've got a battery that's this full, but when you've had a stroke, your battery's here. So you wake up in the morning, you don't have that energy. You've got this much energy, and then it runs flat because of other people's.
Yeah. And the other description, I know we're getting a little bit off topic, is that my doctor said to me that as far as the neuro pathways go, the fatigue is caused because what normally, like to go and pick this up here, normally is like A to B, pick up. Well, with the stroke, it's now A, C, D, and then pick it up. So the brain is working harder to do everything that we used to normally do.
Yeah.
What else do I do? Meditation is huge. So I find that even if I'm having a fatigue shutdown moment, if I actually go and meditate and bring my nervous system down, because heights of anxiety and that sort of thing definitely cause fatigue as well, then that definitely helps. That can feel quite refreshing. But yeah, overwhelm, anxiety, anything that causes you to not actually be breathing well and breathing deep into your body. Definitely causes fatigue for me. Heightened emotions, even happy. Spending time with people. That's the biggest thing after COVID and after being in isolation. I'm the biggest extrovert I know, but spending time with people now is, no matter whether good, bad, or other, is very draining.
Yeah, it's that focus, that focus that you've got to put on, and it can drain your energy a bit quicker. Yeah.
And screens. Unfortunately, I work on a computer 8 hours a day. So I definitely come home some days feeling very fatigued.
Yeah. I think you're doing amazing. I mean, to return to the profession that you're in, you do accounting, right? You're in an accounting firm.
I'm not actually an accountant, though. I'm just the boss.
No, but yeah, exactly. So just to be, I mean, you've got to think on behalf of other people too. You must have so many tabs open in your mind all of the time. So I can imagine that by the end of the day, your battery's probably feeling a bit flat.
Yes, definitely.
But you've got some good tools there. I love some of those tools that you use to pause your mind and refresh yourself.
Yeah.
So in terms of Jodi post-stroke and Jodi pre-stroke, how do you think she has changed? What has changed, Jodi, in your learnings since you've had your stroke?
So I would say that it's kind of like not a double-edged sword, but physically I have changed. I have less movement. I still have less sensitivity down my entire left side. I've lost peripheral vision, and some feeling, like there's physical aspects that are different. And there are, as far as my physicality goes, I sort of go back and want some of pre-stroke Jodi, particularly the more petite version. And helped, even though, because I was a smoker and all that sort of stuff, I certainly don't miss any of that. But as far as spiritually and emotionally, I really love this version here because I'm really proud of her. Part of my reflections post-stroke, when I started to be like, okay, why am I still here? Why have I been left what I have been left with? What can I do to serve other people with that? It had me really reflect on my pre-stroke life. And it was kind of like I was really just a robot.
Yeah.
I was doing what was expected of me. I was raising my boys. I was working hard. I was paying my mortgage. It was kind of existence.
A traditional Western life.
Yeah. And it was very flat line.
Yeah. No purpose.
Yes. And now it's like, I can honestly say post-stroke, I have actually experienced true inner joy, true inner purpose. I have the heightened emotions, which can be really high and really low, but that's okay.
The roller coaster.
Yes, absolutely. And just knowing, there's real purpose in what we're doing even today. There's real purpose in knowing that sharing what we've been through and how that can support other people, and just let them know that they're not alone. That is huge. And I wished that there was more of that back 10 years ago. So I feel really honoured to be a part of the movement that is now sort of going forward, putting out their support and services that weren't available to us. That's pretty special.
It really is. And that's how we found each other, by wanting to connect and wanting to make a change and a difference in the lives of others. Like we didn't hold on to this grudge feeling of, oh, it was nothing for me, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like we knew, yes, there wasn't these things available to us at the time, but let's collaborate and let's get together and share our stories and make a difference for the lives of those who are with us now, but also those who are coming after us.
Yeah, definitely. Because the sad fact is, I think, is that this will always be a thing. We're not going to eradicate stroke.
Did you know anyone that had a stroke prior to you having a stroke?
No, but after I did, I've actually supported a couple of people that I classed as young. They're a little bit older than I was, but yeah, they've had stroke since. But locally, there's a stroke support group here, but it's full of elderly people.
Yeah.
There's nothing really here designed specifically for young stroke survivors. For now. Not yet.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I found the same where I live, that there was nothing. And I did go to one stroke group, and I was the youngest person by far. Everybody else was over 65, 70, and I felt so out of place. It really re-traumatized me back to my hospital days when I was on the stroke ward, thinking, oh, what's happening to me? Like, it just felt like I just couldn't connect with what was happening to me or my environment or to the people around me. And I didn't know anybody else that had a stroke as a young age. And so even though they told me why I'd had my stroke and that made sense, it still didn't make sense. I was still well, why? How did this happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I find it fascinating, even thinking and learning about. I know that in the book there's 3 or 4 people that have had brainstem strokes, like I have too. I just find it absolutely fascinating how it affects people so individually.
Right.
And I think
that's had ended up with locked-in syndrome, and another one was in ICU for 5 or 6 weeks, and then had to relearn how to do absolutely everything again. And these stories are remarkable.
Like reading, I was absolutely bawling reading those stories. And it just hit home just how blessed we are to have the abilities that we're left with. And it's kind of like, what right do I have knowing that there's people that are so much worse off and are, you know, living their own experiences? What right do I have to be sad and depressed about it?
Oh, look, I do the same thing. I do the compare and despair with my own stroke. I look at other people whose post-stroke rehabilitation journeys is just such a struggle for them every day. And I do the same. I think, well, why am I mentally and emotionally such a wreck? But the thing is, I have to remind myself, well, I had a stroke too. My life changed too. My life has been significantly impaired also. I can't see out of on the right side of both of my eyes. I can't drive. I don't have a support network. Like, we all have different life experiences post-stroke, and to compare ourselves to somebody else's is never going to do us any benefit. But then I think to myself, well, you know what? My purpose post-stroke was to help connect and to help inspire and to help, you know, show the way, you know, the light way, I suppose, post-stroke.
Yeah. And you're doing that well.
Thank you. With collaborations. I could never do it on my own.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest struggles as a stroke survivor is and I was only talking to a friend in my community the other day, is about the stroke scars on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've had probably 4 or 5 people over the last 5 years be like, oh my God, you're 100% recovered. Look at you.
100%.
And I'm like, can you define that for me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it, just physically I look like I haven't had a stroke? Oh, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that your
I
definition?
often find when people say to me, oh, you don't look like you've had a stroke, I think, oh, well,
Sorry.
hang on, I've worked really hard to be here.
Yes. Yeah.
So we were just talking about support networks and things like that. Have you found any particular, like online or in person or whatever, groups to have helped you along your journey along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So mainly online, similar to you, sort of social media groups and that sort of thing. I went looking and found that's where I it really stood out for me, the difference in the 2 different mindsets.
Right. Yes, me too.
Because I am quite positive. And yes, I am really lucky. I've been left with lots of abilities and that sort of thing. And so I like to post optimistic, positive things. And some of the responses, a lot of the responses I've got are really encouraging and really lovely. And you go, yes, we think that too. That's fabulous. And some of them are just, I wouldn't say terrible, but just, it's very clear that the mindsets are very different.
Yeah, that was quite a huge awakening for me too, to notice that inside some of the worldwide stroke groups, is that exactly that. It was the depression and the negativity, and if anybody's doing any well in some kind of way, it was, well, how dare you, and it was really, I found that really quite tough actually. And part of my emotional journey was to see how tough other people were doing it.
Yeah.
Mentally and emotionally. Like, I just found that quite hard. And I think now whenever I see anybody's negative comments towards anyone who is doing anything good or who is trying to inspire or who is trying to uplift, it's just where they're at.
Yes.
They're just projecting their own internal feelings about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I said, I'm fairly positive and I love inspiration and that sort of thing, but I've certainly experienced deep, dark times. Probably just,
and we're not trying to take away from those dark times.
Gosh, no.
We just know that,
and skim over them. Yeah, no, not at all. And I think that's what I try and do too with when I'm sharing my story, is don't skim over the crap. Don't skim over the dark bits, because they're the bits that people are like, oh, thank goodness.
Right.
Like, yes, and the inspiration of, oh, wow, that's fantastic that you've done that, and fantastic that you've done a collaboration with this book and you're getting it out there and you're supporting the community. But it's just as important to share the deep, dark, shitty bits.
Right. Because I think everybody does go through them, don't you reckon?
Yes.
Post-stroke?
Yeah, definitely.
I do.
Again, it's different for everyone, and the time periods are different for everyone as well. I mean, because I'm going, I did experience it, but I couldn't say how long I was in the deep, dark depths of depression. It was 10 years ago now. And I didn't
say it was about 6 years for me. It took me about 6 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think because you're a single mum too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think, because I reckon having my 2 boys at home and knowing that I was the only one kind of there for them helped me in my stroke journey. Even if you don't want to get out of bed, you still got to get up.
Yeah, there's one of mine behind the scenes. Yeah, it was I say this one saved me because I found out I was pregnant after my stroke with him.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have him, it may have taken me a lot longer. I may not have ever recovered mentally, emotionally from my stroke. And that was because of the lack of acceptance and my deep holding on and grief and over the loss of my life prior to my stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't shift post that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, moving on to now, what 3 top tips would you give to other to stroke survivors who are listening or who may listen in after this has been recorded?
3 top tips, my goodness. Number 1 would be to listen to your body. Rest when you need to rest. Try not to judge and try not to compare. But yeah, listening to your body. It's a tough one too, though, because sometimes we don't want to push ourselves and we actually need to push ourselves that little bit. But I think when I say listen to your body, for me, that's listen to your brain as far as where you are at mentally, where you're at fatigue-wise, that sort of thing. And definitely rest when you need to. That would be number 1. Number 2, it's all about self-care, really.
Self-care is great.
Yes, definitely. It's really hard to not feel like a burden.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things to sort of shift that mindset. So my tip around that would be I found the best way is actually to have the conversations with the people you think you are a burden with. Be brave and
and we hope that they are honest with you in return.
Yes, absolutely. And the third one would be, it's so hard because we all have our own versions of it. The third one I would say is meditate. Meditation has been my savior. It's a way of connecting with yourself, connecting with your body, being mindful, being present, and as I said, can be quite refreshing during your fatigue phases.
Yeah, I love your tips, Jodi. And thank you. We'll probably finish up now. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure working with you, collaborating with you and chatting to you. Do you have any final words that you would like to give to our listeners?
Only that you're not alone.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been as Letisha was saying, it has been really a revelation and listening into your conversations. Of course, each experience is different, as you said yourself, Jodi, and every stroke that way is different. But how to face whatever you have had, whatever one has had, I think that is what counts after it has happened. If it has happened, now what do we do? The mindset, as you said, is the winner's mindset. And some have it maybe by personality, I was just curious to know, Jodi. Yeah. Were you optimistic? Would you consider yourself an outgoing, optimistic personality even before stroke? How would you define yourself?
Yeah, I would say I was fairly optimistic pre-stroke. I think my biggest optimism tool now post-stroke is gratitude, like daily gratitudes, and really reflecting on why not like what I've got and what I've got to be grateful for. Gratitude's like huge. That should be one of my 3 tips.
Then we'll add that as a 4th one, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, gratitude. But again, I was just when you started off, you talked about an osteopath, someone who did a neck adjustment. Is that a chiropractor? What do you call?
So a chiropractor, they do this. The manipulation itself is similar or the same, but osteo works with muscle as well as bone adjustments.
Okay, so when it was ultimately found that this was something that happened at that time, did you go back to the osteopath? Does he take some responsibility for what he did? Are they qualified to do what happened?
So my osteopath actually contacted me about a month after I got home from hospital to see how my neck was.
Oh.
Because he hadn't heard from me for a while. And I explained to him that I'd experienced a stroke, and he was absolutely mortified, more so than I was by then, because like I'd obviously come to some form of acceptance. And a lot of people ask me this, Hardeep, whether like, did I sue him or did I do anything like that? And my truth is that I didn't, because I asked the doctor 3 days before for a scare that would make me give up smoking.
Okay.
The universe answered.
Mm.
And the osteo was the tool.
Mm. Mm.
So I wasn't going to punish the tool, the tool in getting me what I wanted.
I have regular neck adjustments every month, and every month when I go in for my neck adjustment, I think of you, Jodi. But I also I put the full faith and trust into my chiropractor that I know if anything was to happen, it would not be his fault. It would just be circumstantial.
Yeah.
And why do you need these neck adjustments? What do you do it for after wear? You have some neck pain or that, or what is the purpose of it? These neck adjustments that you do, or you get done from the osteopath.
So I definitely had neck pain.
Okay.
So yeah, it was to relieve the neck pain that I had at the time. A lot of people just do it regularly, like Letisha, just as regular maintenance, particularly if you're working like at a computer and you're kind of like hunched over and that sort of thing. It is quite a common adjustment. It's not a common occurrence to experience a stroke from it, but it does happen. And sometimes it happens immediately, like the neck adjustment and stroke straight away. Mine was delayed.
Okay. As you said, maybe there's a tool. It's a tool to better ends, maybe, as although perhaps the path may seem convoluted, but as you yourself said, post-stroke, you have found purpose. As you said, many people go through lives without finding a purpose. So, to that extent, yes. And as you also said, mindset. Different people do have different mindsets. For whatsoever reason. I mean, it's just like I was reading somewhere: the glass is half, the glass is full. And then somebody said, "Be grateful, the glass is there and there's something in it." Whether it is half or full, at least you have something in it. So I think it is indeed the mindset. Yes, of course, the challenge is how to get that mindset. When you perhaps don't have that mindset earlier. Some people have that, as an inherent personality. That they feel that fighting spirit, that challenging spirit. Some people are just not that. And when they are faced suddenly, with a almost a life-changing event that stroke is, different people do have different responses. We see that in our group also. We see optimistic people, although they are facing adversities, and we see people not so optimistic. We do, at the end of it all, I think, at least in Hinduism, we believe in destiny also, and karma also. So maybe it is to do with our past births, etc., or as you said, as a tool. Coming to meditation, I was curious about that also. How did you get into meditation? Were you earlier also into that, or somebody?
I didn't slow down often enough pre-stroke to meditate. I was on a mission to get stuff done. I think my first experience was actually I was just found, I'd heard that it was pretty good dealing with fatigue and that sort of thing. And I think I took like a 7-day challenge that was on Facebook or something like that and really enjoyed it. And then I actually signed up for 100-day silent meditation challenge in a group where you meditate first in the morning, totally silent, because I really like guided as well, because I like I like being told what to do. But the silent meditation was very powerful. And so, part of the group was you meditated for an hour silently every morning, and then you got into the group Facebook group and did a video debrief of what came up for you and what you experienced. That was amazing. And I've just loved it ever since. It's kind of my go-to if ever I have a strong reaction to something, like if I'm in anxiety or even if I'm not sleeping well or anything like that, I would definitely go to meditation just to calm everything down and reconnect with self.
Indeed, and that's a Facebook group which still exists with this challenge, etc.
Yes.
People go and then they share their feelings.
Yes.
After that, it is done. Okay, great.
Yeah. It's amazing what insight you get. Like we had some it's like your inner self talks to you in that silence once your monkey brain stops.
The monkey brain, yes.
Yeah.
If you've heard of Vipassana, or Vipassana as some people call it, it's a silent retreat, actually.
Yes. That's on my bucket list to do.
Sorry?
That's on my bucket list to do.
Okay, I've done it actually.
Yeah.
It is there in India because, of course, Vipassana was started from a person in Mr. Goenka in India. So in India, there are those retreats. I have done 10 days of that. And yes, it's an interesting experience, a learning experience. I would like to bring Shruti in. Shruti has been here also. Shruti, you are there?
Yeah. I am there. Okay. Welcome. I've been driving and listening all along. My first thing I want to thank both of them for the wonderful session. And 2 key takeaways is gratitude and meditation. Gratitude we do every day, and meditation not very regular. So now we will make it a part of our routine. Thanks so much for that. And congratulations on getting back to your job. That's a very nice motivation for all of us.
Shruti's husband was a senior level IT professional when he suffered a stroke some years ago, and he's also a very optimistic person, I must say. Both the whole family is, and he still suffers from deficits particularly speech deficits. But yes, as a family, they're coming wonderfully together, as well as supporting our group as well, with a host of activities. Although I know that it is always an ask, because we do so many things, post-stroke handling so many issues. But yes, whatever one can do, and that is, I think, in our group, we do try to, of course, we are limited also by resources, but we do try to do best we can with the members of the group itself. That to that extent, I think Shruti has been there, and it's been a great help. Shruti, any other observation?
Yes, I have a poor signal here. I'll be. I'm in my children's school actually. We have come to see their papers.
Okay. All the best then. Take care. So thank you very much. I think we can close the meeting now. Certainly, it will be. I would say it will be a very great help to whoever also watches it later. Because there's so many takeaways from here. But of course, one takes away what one can. Again, it is also, you see things that you want to see, as it is said sometimes, and then you ignore others. But then, yes, thank you very much, Letisha, and thank you, Jodi, for joining in. And
Thank you, Hadib.
We wish you the very best to both of you, and of course, we'll be in touch again. Letisha,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you then.
Thank
all
you.
the best. And I'm closing the meeting now. Okay.
Okay.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.